Welcome to my session. Today we talk about Gemini AI and the possibilities of integration of this AI into business application written with Delphi. A few words about myself. I'm a regular speaker at the Delphi conference and I'm just returned from the Delphi Summit. I also organized the Delphi Group Switzerland with a colleague. I also work as Delphi expert for various Swiss companies, advising and solving problems in their projects. If you are looking for a Delphi expert with an expertise in Google Cloud and Gemini AI, we should talk together. You can reach me at the email address shown or on LinkedIn. This is the agenda for the today's session. First, I start with an overview of Gemini AI and the open source library FB4D. Then we speak about processing and generating of natural language and structured text. As next, we speak about interpreting images and documents. Now it becomes technical. I will show you the Gemini AI interface provided in FB4D. And last but not least, I make a conclusion and an outlook to the future. But let's start with Gemini AI and the overview about FB4D, the open source library. For starting with Gemini AI, you need to create your own API key in the Google AI Studio. For this purpose, go in the browser to aistudio.google.com. A credit card is no longer required to start. The price model is pay as you go, and the cost depends on the selected model and the data traffic, but are mostly moderate. As first, you create your own API key and you copy them for use with FB4D in the section Gemini AI interfaces. Gemini AI is, thanks to multimodality, more than a large language model. Gemini AI is a rapidly evolving Google DeepMind project, and it's available only as web service via REST API. There are two interface versions, the stable version 1 and the newer version 1 beta. Local execution of all Gemini models is not yet supported, but Gemma models, which bases on the same technology than Gemini models, and also Gemini Nano, which runs on Android devices, can be run locally on devices. What means multimodality? Interpretation of images and documents in form of PDFs can be done with Gemini AI. There are different models for different purposes. The Pro models are balanced. The Flash are fast and low cost, and the Ultra models are the most capable models. Newer models are able also to generate images, audio, and in the future also video. FB4D is the name of my open source library for accessing Firebase services, and Gemini AI from Delphi. The project is hosted on GitHub. This is the address, and here you have a barcode to get fastly the web URL. There is a wiki, and the wiki provides the interface description also with a lot of information you need. And we have a discussion forum, and of course there are sample projects to explain the library. Alternatively, you can also install FB4D via Gedit. But keep in mind, normally you have an outdated version because Gedit is not synchronized with GitHub. Let's talk about features of FB4D and principle for addressing Firebase services. It's a pure source code library based on the REST API provided by Google. It is a cross-platform library for VCL and FireMonkey. It supports all platforms from Windows to Mac to Linux, Android and iOS. It provides for all service an own class interface, and this class interface is accessible via a class factory. For all service functions there are two methods provided. The first one is the synchronous, a blocking method for using in threads and services. The second one are asynchronous methods with callback method for using in GUI application. Thanks to fluent design of the interface, you can write short and readable code. This slide gives you an overview about all services which are supported by FB4D for Firebase and Gemini AI. As first, we have the Firebase authentication service. As second, we have a real-time NoSQL database which works as a large JSON object. The third one is a newer NoSQL database, the Firestore, which contains collections of documents. Then we have the cloud storage for storage of files in the cloud. As next, we have cloud functions for running server-side functions written in JavaScript or TypeScript. Then an ML Vision service is included for machine learning for using in image recognitions. And last but not least, and this is the topic of today, we have the Gemini AI, a natural language processing and vision. Now let's dive into processing and generating of natural languages. But we can also generate structured text like JSON, XML, or HTML, or SVG. The goal of my library is to extend business application with features that accelerates the work. What kind of application we can build with processing of natural languages? This list gives you some ideas, but of course it is not complete. For example, we can create automatically emails from a draft, or we can build replies of emails. We can summarizing long text. For example, we can build reports or meeting minutes. We can extracting specific information from a continuous text from a longer text. We can generate description based on bullet points, for example, for writing a product description. And of course, we can use it to translate language in another language. There are currently more than 115 languages supported. Or, and this is also an important feature, we can ensure error-free text by using spelling and grammar checks, thanks to an intelligent review. But this is more than we have in the past with spelling and grammar checks. If we want to process the output of Gemini AI in a Delphi application, it's recommended to ask for a structured text readable by a machine, for example using JSON, XML or scalable vector graphics. For JSON we can define a JSON scheme, to define precisely that what JSON object is generated for Delphi. Or we can request an SVG from Gemini to generate graphics dynamically for example, for creating diagrams. To display these diagrams, we can use Skia for Delphi, or we can use a modern browser like Edge by using TWebView 2.
Let me start with the Delphi 12 IDE. I have already downloaded FB4D on this system. You can find the recommended demo application for the first start in the intro directory. The Firebase project settings isn't required. Here you see all other services. For Gemini configuration, you need to enter the Gemini API key, and you can select here the Gemini model depending on the interface you have selected. Either version 1 beta or version 1. I will explain the details of the model parameters later in a separate slide. Let me ask Gemini AI a first question. I would like to know why the training data is not published in an open source LLM. He explained the background about copyrights and trade secrets in detail. I don't want to read out the whole answer now, but I will briefly show what the answer looks like in HTML. The answer is delivered as Markdown format, and its original JSON object is returned from Gemini AI. Now I will show you a first example where a photo is to be interpreted and Gemini AI is to generate a synthetic image from it. It is a handwritten post-it that I would like to present more beautiful. For this purpose I use the SVG format to do the job. And in the system instruction I deliver more details how to handle and how to process. Here is the amazing result. In the tab Markdown format result, you can inspect the SVG for further processing.
I would like to tell you a little bit more about my personal story of the shown post-it use case. From mid-2017 to mid-2023, I was the external development leader for a startup company in Switzerland that was building a new tool for driving workshops in a management consulting. Of course, I used FireMonkey as the application need to run on both Windows and Mac system. What exactly did we build? A new kind of presentation software that allows a consultant to bring all their own management theories to the table and quickly change the subject. Our clients no longer wanted linear presentation. Instead, the workshop and the question would terminate the flow and what would be presented. In addition, it was not only necessary to present slides that had been prepared in advance, but also dynamic slides consisting of a photo or a video that were taken on a mobile phone during the workshop. Firebase was ideal for transferring these slides from a mobile device to a desktop system, including the metadata via the internet. In workshops, ideas are usually developed in a group and then discussed. The ideas are usually written on post-it and related to each other on a whiteboard. Now I come to the actual task, which was a big challenge for us. Workshop participants often don't want to show their own handwriting, and it is also be desirable for a better readability if we could artificially redraw the post-it. And this was exactly the requirement for a such system. From 2019 to 2021, I was able to supervise 3 feasibility studies conducted at the Swiss University of Applied Science with 5 students. We used primarily ML vision in all of them. At the beginning, handwriting recognition was still unusable. In the last student project, I saw good results showing that we could implement such system, but with a lot of effort. When I look at the same solution today with Gemini AI, it is extremely astonishing how simple and robust this application has become. Back then, we still had to create the SVG graphic ourselves from the extracted text. Next, I would like to show you use cases from business application that will give you ideas of what can be built with it. Let's assume we have a customer relation management system or an application supporting a company's help desk. Incoming emails should be automatically read and categorized so that the support staff can process them more quickly. First, we need to be clear about the types of requests we typically receive. I have defined this list: get quote, order, invoice, complaint, technical question, bug report, and for all other categories, others. It's important to recognize the emotional state of a request. If the customer has a major problem, they will likely write more harshly. It is equally important to extract references such as customer numbers, case numbers of invoice numbers, etc. from the email, so we can show the context of the mail when we process the mail in our application.
The Gemini AI business app is newly created FireMonkey sample application. The first step is to transfer the API key and select the model for the interface version. There are 3 use cases. Let's go to email interpretation. First, we create a fictitious mail with the AI from the following categories. We choose to request a quote. Gemini AI provides us with a nice email from the customer John Miller. He needs a quote for a CRM system for 75 employees. The new system is to extend the Oracle system currently in operation. He needs the offer by end of March. In the next step, we would like to solve our own task. Now, this email is to be analyzed on basis of predefined criteria. As first, we have a new title and a summary of the mail. And we have extracted the company's name, the email sender address, the role of the sender, the reference, and what kind of reference. This is a license number, the date of the mail, and as next we see the priority, the category, and the emotionality of the mail, together with an action list for the salesperson. And here you can see the original JSON replied by the Gemini server. Here I show you the request to the Gemini AI server. It contains a Gemini scheme, which contains the structured JSON object with all the data types and in addition some description which explains the field meaning. And you see there are nested data types like array and enumerated strings. Let's create a second example mail. We take a customer complaint. Here the customer mentions a bug in our system and describes in detail all the trouble we have and how urgent he needs a solution. So let's start the mail interpretation process. And let's check the result from Gemini AI. We have a good title and we have a description which explains shortly what is the content of this mail. In addition, we have all our fields from email addresses, role type, references and reference type, date and priority. The priority is now urgent. Category is bug report. And the emotionally, and this is part of the priority, is negative critical. As action, we have to investigate CRM performance issue and contact the customer with our results.
Let's dive into the next topic, interpreting images and documents. This feature is based on the multimodal capabilities of Gemini AI. My next use case examples show the processing of supplier invoices. I have shown this example before, but I still think it's a very good example of what can be built with Gemini AI. Let's assume we have an enterprise resource planning system, an ERP, which processes incoming invoices as PDF from many suppliers from different countries with various formats. We have to extract all relevant data from the invoice to write it into our database later. In a subsequent process, an assigned manager will then release invoices. That is why the referencing is so important, because we want to automatically display the invoices to the right person. The task is to read all relevant data from the invoice, or if it's not available, to derive it. For example, the payment date can be calculated from the date of the invoice and the payment deadline. But we also need all references of the bank account, like an interbanking exchange number, the IBAN, European IBAN number, and all the details for the tax amounts. I start again in the Gemini AI demo business application and go directly to the third tab, Invoice Processing. At the first start, an invoice is loaded from the test data of the unit tests. It is a fictitious invoice from my company to a Canadian software manufacturer. It's a typical Swiss invoice with a Swiss barcode. These are the fields we will receive from Gemini AI. Invoice date, invoice number, the reason of payment, amount and the tax is correct. Also the invoice issuer. Also the receiver address. But here the due date is wrong. We will investigate that later. The interbanking number, the IBAN number, a European interbanking number is here. That's correct. In the prompt we ask for the details from the invoice, and in addition we provide a JSON scheme for a JSON object that we need for further processing. And here I realize that the new date time format recently introduced isn't working yet. So I will change the data type to string in the JSON scheme. Here I have to adjust not only the scheme, but also the evaluation of the resulting JSON. Unfortunately, we lose the specification of the date format, so we are unsure in what format the date will be delivered now. Now we run the interpretation again. I hope this problem will be solved soon. Let's check the results. Okay, now also the due date and the invoice date both are correct. Let's check another invoice. Here I load an invoice from the year 2016, a real invoice from Embarcadero for my maintenance fee for the Delphi license. Let's check the fields. The reason of payment. This is exactly what we have given here. The invoice number, the invoice date is now also working, the amount. Let's go below so we can check that. Okay, there are no taxes. We see here the invoice issuer, and the receiver is my old company address. The due date of payment is the same as the date of invoice because I've paid by credit card. The interbanking number is correct, also the bank account number and the SWIFT code. Now I want to test my solution, that is the prompt with the JSON scheme on the chosen model, using an extreme example. This is a handwritten invoice. I'm curious about the result. Okay, let's start invoice interpretation. Here we see the reason of payment. This is window glaze. The details is missing, but at least the name is correct. There is no invoice number, but the invoice date is correct. The amount is correct. The tax and the tax rate is correct. The invoice issuer also fully correct. The receiver is also correct. The first W is small, capital, but that is not a big issue. The due date, correct. So let's check the banking account number. Correct. And the SWIFT code. Oh, this is not really correct. Here my handwriting makes troubles. Despite this mistake, what Gemini AI can archive is remarkable. In my opinion, a similar resolution using OCR and proprietary algorithms is still not feasible. However, I don't want to hide the fact that development with Gemini AI sometimes causes problems. In the Gemini AI business application project, there is a fourth tab with another use case from the field of logistics. My idea here was to show how incoming goods inspection can be automated with the help of a delivery list based on a photo taken at the goods receipt. Unfortunately, several problems arose, which is why I didn't want to show this use case in this session. The problem concerns image generation via Gemini AI and generating a test image artificially. The model that could solve this task was no longer accessible from one day to the next during my development. And then I also struggled with the quality problems and still had too many errors in the subsequent recognition. Now we come to the technical details of the Gemini AI interface in FB4D. My goal is that you are able to write your cross-platform application with using FB4D and bring your ideas faster to the market. Okay, here we are in the Firebase lib demo and inspect all the Gemini configuration parameters. The first is not a parameter, but here we can click to open the AI Studio in the browser. Or here we can open my wiki in the browser. Here you have to enter your API key obtained from the AI Studio. Here you select the interface version between version 1 and version 1 beta. Here you have a list of all available models. And here you get some information about the models, details, and all the capabilities of the model. This optional parameter, use model parameter, allows you to adjust creativity versus predictability, randomness versus determinism. I cannot explain all the details here, but keep in mind, for example, max output token lets you to decide how long the answer gets, and this is cost relevant. Safety settings can be used to prevent unexpected texts. It has some categories like hate speech, harassment, sexual explicitity, dangerous content, and civic integration, where you can set your level which you desired. Your chat application, for example, don't speak about your competitor. With the option Define Response Modality, you are able to generate text. Okay, this is the main. You can also generate images and generate audio. This is what the current version of the interface allows. Keep in mind that generating image and generating audio is only available for newer models. The next two settings are important. It enables active research on the internet during the processing and thus overcomes the frozen model. Why we have two ways for do the same? Don't ask me, it's Google decisions. Now I show you the main interface of Gemini AI. Usually you can set the API version and the model directly in the constructor of this class, T Gemini AI. But you also have the ability to set the API version, to fetch the list of models, and to set the model later. With a first generate content by prompts, you can ask with a small prompt and get your response. If you need more detailed requests, use iGemini AI request interface, and you also get an iGemini AI response interface. The next two methods allows you to calculate the cost of your prompt. But keep in mind, this is only the input. The output can be controlled with the other parameter max output token. Next, let's look at the interface for the result of Gemini AI. The Gemini AI response. Gemini AI usually delivers the resulting text in Markdown format, unless we specified another. Unfortunately, FireMonkey doesn't provide a visualization component for Markdown formats, which is why the resulting text is converted to HTML with the Markdown submodule from Graham Greif. If we request a JSON object, for example by supplying a JSON scheme with the request, we receive the resulting JSON object here in this method. Do not confuse this with the raw JSON result method, which returns the entire response from Gemini AI in a raw data format. It is possible that Gemini AI provides several candidates of answers. In this situation, we can use a number of results and eval results to retrieve the individual candidate. The next slide shows Gemini AI request interface. If we want to make more complex requests, then don't just contain a text prompt. With the system instruction option, we can split our request into a prompt and into the instruction. Please note that this new feature was not yet available for old models. Unfortunately, there is no way to ask Gemini AI which features works in detail for a model. However, you will receive a meaningful error message if the model does not support the function. If we want to build a chat system that consists of a sequence of questions and answers, you must send all previous questions and answers to Gemini AI. REST is stateless and does not save a session, and the request is usually sent to another server in the cloud that does not know the history. We have reached the end of my presentation. I would like to summarize the most important points and to provide an outline. The most important point concerns the data protection issue. Do not rely on Google's data protection for critical applications such as a medical application. At least from a European point of view, the data protection guidelines and the guarantees for critical applications are inadequate. Please note that this is of course my personal opinion and may not coincident with official statements from Google. These problems will be solved in the future when I can run models of the same power locally. Currently, this isn't the case with Gemma models, but development is processing rapidly, and we can hope that in the future, with using of new AI chips, we will be able to run good models locally as well. For now, we will have to wait and see for critical applications. Or perhaps we can build a hybrid approach combining Gemma and Gemini models. Another problem concerns the API key. If you deliver your API key with your application to a larger group of users, you are not sure that this key cannot be stolen out of your application and misused. Therefore, I recommend the solution shown only for in-house use on your own servers. It is possible to make a Firebase function to encapsulate the entire Gemini AI access. But this is out of this session. If you use this library in a commercial product, Please consider sponsoring to ensure continued development and maintenance of this library. This will also protect your own development investment. Thank you for attending to this session.
Okay, that was a fantastic session. Christoph is so smart. I last saw him, was it 2 weeks ago, I think, in Amsterdam at the Delphi Summit, and we bump into each other quite often, actually, because we tend to go to similar events as well. But the good news is he's joining us live. He's asking me questions about his camera, but we'll work that out, and a headset. I think it's all going to be good. But anyway, joining me is Christoph Schneider, and there we go.
Hi, Ian.
Perfect. Good. We can hear you. I think it says it's going well. Why does it say unmute there? Just speak for a second.
Yeah, can you?
Yeah. There you go. I don't know why there's
okay.
like a little unmute symbol on you. I could hear you. So, thanks, Christoph. I mean, I love the FB4D, and I want to tell the people that are watching, because they might not realize this, but how much work you put into those videos. I always just like churn my stuff out, and I'm like, yeah, that'll do that. But you are a craftsman when it comes to preparing this stuff, because I know you put a lot of effort into it. So I want to thank you on behalf of the audience, and also Embarcadero, for the amount of work you put into it, because I know it's a lot.
Thank you.
It's not a 10-minute thing. It's many hours of work. Okay, so we did have a couple of questions. Rick, unfortunately, has left us, but he did ask this question. I think it's a relevant one. And he's like, oh, a handwritten invoice? And sort of, you and I were chatting in the private chat. And actually, I think we both came up with a number of different examples of where actually handwritten invoices are a thing. What was it? You had an example of some kind of notes, wasn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree. Handwritten invoices are, at least in my country, not longer a situation business to business. Sometimes business to privates, okay, but business to business are handwritten invoices from the past. This is gone. But my topic was to show also here an extreme example. What is possible and what not. And so handwritten invoices is a good example to show, okay, if you try that with an OCR algorithm, you get lost.
It would. I mean, it would just fail miserably. I've tried OCR, and some of them work okay, but most of them, they're pretty good. Pretty
with handwritten, an OCR algorithm has problems at all. And
and the thing is, I think what was funny as well is, although Rick was joking or handwritten invoice, but actually my experience living here in Texas is that as Jeff, in fact, Jeff has just exactly said that. I don't know whether he's talking about the movie Lawnmower Man, but it actually goes to what I'm about to say, which is I moved recently from a house into an apartment. And when you move out of rented accommodation, one of the things you have to do is basically get everything back to normal, where you've put some pins in the wall and things. But also, they expect you to cut the grass. Now, I used to cut the grass myself because, it's good exercise. But actually, in this case, we paid someone to do it. And these guys, they only give you handwritten invoices. They never get, and it's not my business why they do that. I'm sure
perhaps they save taxes, but
exactly.
Don't say anything.
I'm sure it's perfectly legitimate. But actually, we also gave the example of taxi drivers as well, because in Amsterdam at the Delphi Summit, they're all printed. They all have little receipt printers. But I think that's just because in Amsterdam they're very precise about what they do with taxis. But no, it's very common to get a handwritten note. So but the other thing about it was as well, and
this post-it thing, which I have shown before, this was a real requirement for a customer company I have worked for, and I have explained. We was working for business consulting, and they make a workshop which white walls, and you print your ideas or you write your ideas often on such post-it
I have some myself somewhere here as
notes.
well.
And,
Yeah.
and you want to discuss all your ideas together. And yeah, sometimes people are handicapped to show their own handwriting, and even all it's also a problematic situation if the handwriting is not readable correct. And
If
so
it's my handwriting, it's
yeah,
definitely not
yeah.
readable.
And our idea was, okay, we have here a Delphi application connected to Firebase, and we make photos of such whiteboards and such with such post-it notes. And the thing was, okay, in the next step, we want to make an artificial image out of what the photo brings. And this was a real requirement. And I made a lot of research with, I mentioned that with 5 students, 3 years. There was a lot of research we made at that time with ML Vision. This was at that time the tool we had, of course, also web-based service. That service is still available in FB4D. We have that still included. But if I compare that solution and our troubles we had at the beginning, it was not usable for handwriting. At the end, 2022 or 20, I believe. Don't ask me. The years are going so fast. I think it was 2022, something like that.
Yeah.
At the end, we had a solution or a technical breakthrough. I could show, okay, now we can build with this tool a solution which would work. But in fact, we had to do a lot of manual programming. We just extracted the text out of the post-it, and we have to build the artificial scaled vector graphic by ourselves, writing TypeScript or something like that on server side. And yeah, if I compare this situation with the today's situation with Gemini AI, it's amazing how easy it goes. I just write the good.
I'll tell you something. First of all, I actually like Gemini. I use it myself. I have 2 phones because I'm a developer, and I have a Samsung phone and an iOS phone. But the Samsung phone has Gemini on it, and I think it's a paid account I have. But I also use it in the background with the the IDE, the Gemini built into the IDE. But I tell you what I liked as well early on in your presentation. You talked about where you were scanning the emails, and I thought a really very interesting thing that you called out as well was the sentiment analysis. In other words, is this email an angry, upset email, or are they just saying, "Hey, I love your stuff"? Of course, all my emails are people saying good things, right?
What is the emotionality? And in this was my use case in the CRM, customer relation management system, where you have to interpret emails and prepare it, and this should save cost or work within your customer department, customer support department. This was the use case, and emotionality in an email is a critical thing. It can have an influence of the priority in which you should handle that email. If they are really upset and if they are really have a problem.
Well, I mean, it's actually quite vital because in a previous job that I had, we had tens of thousands of customers, and if we released a new version and we made a mess of it, and it doesn't often happen, but sometimes software development it happens, and you would get a lot of emails, and the amount of emails that you get when you've got that many customers is actually quite unmanageable. You know, you've got a support team that triage them off, but it's very useful to have a mood indicator. So if a good percentage of the emails coming in are unhappy, you know there's a problem.
We have a
and
problem.
It gives you an alert. Yeah, exactly. Now, if a good percentage are happy, then great. It doesn't mean to say you haven't got a problem. It just means that they're not too annoyed about it. But yeah, but I like that. And I mean, these are I can see these kind of things becoming much more widespread, you know, because it's a use of AI that actually is not that intrusive. You know, it's doing something that actually you could not do manually. It would not be possible to go through 10,000 emails and work out whether they're all angry. You maybe do 50, you maybe do 100, but can you do all 10,000? No. But with AI, yes, you could do that. I mean, it costs you, you
exactly,
know,
and
fortune.
the problematic is, of course, you can do a lot of things with algorithms. You can search for certain words. You can set up some words which you search easily, Elasticsearch and such things. But at the end, AI does a lot more. You have not only you have a better sensor for all these things. For emotionality, you cannot build such good detection of emotionality as you have with an AI. This is my personal opinion about.
And it's a sensible use of AI, and that's what I like. And I'm just putting some captions up here and a QR code. I already put your QR code up before.
Thank you.
It's up there, but that goes to your site. But if they go to that site, I think you have links to your GitHub as well. Anyway, don't you, on there? And one question we also got, which I nearly missed because we're going to have to go soon. We're running over a little bit, but that's fine. That was who was it? Where was it? Yes, Omar said, "Will the source code of the demos be available?" And we had a little brief chat on that.
Yes, of course. It's part of the open source library, and I have made for this presentation a new sample application called AI Business App. It's a FireMonkey application. It's part of the FireMonkey. I have two project groups within the sample folder. One is for visual applications. This is a little bit smaller because I like FireMonkey. And the others, on the other side, I have the samples which are all based on FireMonkey and which are all working cross-platform on all platforms, also on Linux, also on Mac OS, and so. And here you see first of all, you should begin with the intro, with the demo application. I have shown that in my first video, in my first slide, and later on, this use case is now integrated in this new AI business application.
Yeah,
you will find.
And a couple of things I want to mention as well, because we're going to have to go. But first of all, it was the answer you gave me in the private chat, but you just said it publicly, which is, of course, the demos have source code.
Yeah.
which I really respect, because actually that's not always the case. I sometimes have problems being able to give my demos away because I, like the one I did with Google Translate, I can't really give that away because it would infringe copyrights. But I can do a cut down version. But more
Okay.
importantly as well, and this is, I'm going to look directly at the camera for those people that are watching this. You should, if you can afford it, and it doesn't have to be much, but if you can afford it, support open source projects by giving a small donation. It doesn't matter how much it is. If enough of you do it, it encourages people like Christoph to carry on, because the effort and time and work that goes into this is phenomenal. And I mean that. I know, because I maintain various libraries, and I'm a developer myself. I'm not just a sales, marketing weirdo dude. I am actually a developer. I know how much effort goes into this, and just a small donation, if every person did just a tiny amount, it would make a big difference to open source. And people like Christoph deserve your support. You can't hear me clapping because my noise cancelling microphone. But same with Dave Nottage, with Castry, and a few others as well. Just
Of
if you
course.
can afford it, how much time have you spent saved by using Christoph's work?
Hundreds of hours is
Yeah, so
spent in this
they've
library.
saved themselves. How much time do you personally, another developer, put against your own time? How much do you value your own time? If it saved you a week of work, why not? Donate. And I do donate to open source. I haven't
And
donated to yours, but hey, I help you in other ways.
two points. One point is, even my credo is, writing code is not the only thing what you have to do if you plan to publish an open source library. You need more. You need a good wiki, and show on my GitHub page. You see a wiki with a reference, with getting started, and of course, I could do all the small points also better, but keep in mention this is important. Have a good reference of all these interfaces. Have a description of all the examples. Unfortunately, the newest example is not yet fully documented. Okay, that happens as soon as I have time.
You have some documentation, which is better than many projects. I see so many projects out there, and you're quite right. They put the source code up, and there's no examples, or the examples they've got. Mickey Mouse, I suppose, is the word we've used on it. But not only that, the documentation is either out of date or completely absent.
And I have a discussion
all
forum.
that effort into the library,
Yeah.
and then they really miss off. It's like going to make a cake. You mix it all up properly, you get it ready, you put it in the oven, and then you throw it away. It's just, you've got to eat the cake as well, and that includes the putting the icing on the top, which is the documentation. It's important.
It's very
Anyway,
important.
unfortunately,
And besides,
we are out of time.
sorry.
You know how it goes. You and I could speak forever. I want to thank you again. Like I say, you put so much effort into this, and I really appreciate it. And we've had a whole bunch of people saying thank you as well. I don't know whether you've seen the captions up here, but they're on your side. And I didn't get to see your presentation, I think, at the Delphi Summit, because I was doing summit stuff myself. But we always bump into each other from time to time. It's good stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Christoph.
Okay.
And any final words before we go, or we good?
Yeah, just one point in depending of sponsoring. I distinguish between someone which tries this library or use it in a hobby project. I think this is not comparable to a company which builds with that library their own product. And in the second case, think about your investment. What have you invested to use this library, and what is your company investment to build this application? And if you know this amount of hours, think, what would you do if you miss this library anymore? And
Yeah.
this should be the argument to make a sponsoring.
Yeah,
in
it's
my opinion.
absolutely true, and I'm all for it. And that's why I you know, my job's great because I get to support people
Yeah.
like you by making, you know, your stuff available to a wider audience. But
Yeah,
you know, I
that's
support you.
great.
I've got your back all the time and all the rest of it. But that's my job.
Yeah,
But even so, on a personal level, you know, I try and make sure that I support everybody as well. So
yeah.
it's good stuff. All right. Well, unfortunately, we have to kick you off because
Yeah,
I've got to go to the next one. But we'll see you again in the future. I
yeah,
don't think we've got any more from you this week, but we'll be back another time. I guarantee it.
great,
Thanks a lot, Christoph.
great. Thank
Thanks.
you,
Cheers.
Ian, for
Bye.
making this video.
No worries. Speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.